Good evening, everybody. May I have your attention 1 second, please, if you don't mind. Welcome to Henry York School. And tonight, we're gonna have Mr. Baker. Scott Baker is the president of Common Grants of New York City. He's also a New York State coordinator, Public Banking Institute, and he's an author and he's an editor too. I think this presentation is going to be wonderful. It's going to cover this topic. Please, if you don't mind, what I want to encourage everybody is to follow the same agenda that we've been following the previous Fridays. We're going to have Mr. Baker his presentation for more or less 45 minutes. He's going to do an introduction, he's going to do a statement, and probably less. It's going to be up to him.
A little more, I think.
Oh, a little bit more, definitely. More. If he allows you, you can start making some comments or any questions, but we prefer to hold all the questions to the end and then let the freedom to discuss, to present everything, and then questions and answers. Mr. Baker, whatever is yours. You're welcome.
All right, so I'll pass out these flyers. These are basically the websites where you can find the slideshow and a few other things. It'll come up at the end too, this way you'll have it. All right, there is a lot of material to cover, so I'm just going to ask that people, if they have a question about a particular slide, make it quick and only about that slide. If I've done my job, then hopefully I've anticipated many of the questions. By the time we get to the end, we'll have some answers, but if not, then we have Q&A afterwards. So basically, this is going to be in 4 parts. We're going to look at the kind of 40,000 foot level about the land and our resources and what we're talking about. And then very quickly, we're going to zoom down into individual properties in New York, and we're going to talk about particular property developments and how the tax situation either benefits the owner or the city, and how that works out, and we'll get to some specific examples. And then we'll broaden it out a little bit to more expensive properties and more complicated situations, and see how that works as far as the city's revenues and property development goes. And then finally, we'll see what steps we can take if we decide that this should be changed, and who supports us and what kind of initiatives that we have in the city. All right. There it goes. All right. So natural resources. This is what we start with. Everybody starts with the earth. So this is our home, and everything that's on here should belong to all of us. Now I know you're all Georgists, or at least you've had some introduction to Georgism, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But basically, just to refresh, we have all of these resources, and basically these are all part of the commons. So we say as Georgists, if people use them, they ought to pay rent on them. And if they pollute things like the sea and the ocean or the air, then they ought to compensate the people for that pollution as well, assuming that it's within livable limits. And that really people should not take something and not pay for it. So, besides all of those resources, we have all important location. So, does anybody recognize this island?
None?
This location? Maybe not. All right, how about, let's just do that. How about now? So now this is more recognizable. That's the same island, except that now it has buildings on it. So this is what gives it all the value, right? So we're all here, and we're all making work, and we're adding value to the city. As a matter of fact, New York is the most densely populated place in the USA. There's about 27, maybe 28,000 people per square mile. This is 2010 census. And it's the most densely productive place in the country as well, with over $1 billion in GDP per square mile. So as I said, we're zooming down now to a lower level. But the city's growth is slowing. So we've had this exodus that's been going on for 40 years, according to the New York Post. And they say from 1970 to 2010, the population has gone from 18 million to 19 million. But in the same period, Texas passed us. They grew from 11 million to 25 million. And as this perennial candidate for mayor and governor, Jimmy McMillan, said, the rent is too damn high. So that's a kind of our pivot point, and we're going to see why the rent is too damn high and why this party would only exist in New York. Okay. So is New York City full? Well, 6% of New York City is classified as vacant. So out of 154,000 acres, that's almost 10,000 acres in the 5 boroughs, including 2.6%, or 282 acres, and almost 2% that's not classified as vacant, but has no information, is probably vacant as well in Manhattan. So it's not really full in that sense. There are, however, a lot of wasted spaces, which the parking lots are classified as vacant. So we have a lot of these parking lots. Now this happens to be one that was on 28th Street and Park Avenue, which is a prime midtown location. So you wonder, well, how come nobody built anything there? Well, when I was researching this, it turned out that the property tax on the parking lot was 1/10 the tax of the 14-story building right next door, which you can see with no windows. So what happened is, Scott Stringer, who used to be our borough president, he made a study in 2007, and he found that there were 1,723 vacant buildings, 505 vacant lots in Manhattan alone. And he said, quote, "In New York City today, we have a booming real estate market and a terrible shortage of affordable housing. Yet there are perverse incentives in place that encourage speculators to hold vacant property rather than build. That may serve some private interest, but it sure doesn't serve the public interest. We've got to change the system," unquote. So, he was saying this back in 2007, even though that was the height of the last building boom. And really it hasn't changed. We still have 6% vacant land. So why is this? So let's say, we're not against parking lots. And we feel that people should be able to drive and should park here. But if there's an extraordinarily valuable corner like this, there must be some reason for it. So we say it's because the rent is not being collected properly. And community gardens are another example. You could have a community garden in a lot, but it's not secure. That lot might get sold sometime and then somebody builds something there. So it really doesn't belong to the community in that sense, unless it's been specifically exempted. And some other problems that we have is we have these boarded up buildings that are 4-story walk-ups, and maybe there's a business on the first floor, and they pay some sort of a property tax, but it's very meager, and it's enough to keep the building going because there isn't much property tax demanded, but you've got 3 wasted floors where nobody's living. So when people are saying, well, I have no place to live and everything's unaffordable, well, there's vacant space there, but it's not being used, it's being warehoused. So again, it's the low property tax, and we're going to get into more specifics about how that works, but that's what's going on in the city. And you may even have 1-story buildings like this one out here in Brooklyn, which, as you can see, it was probably put in after this building was built here because there's no windows on that side, so whatever was up here before was probably blocking that. So that was torn down, and then this little 1-story building was put up there instead, so it's kind of the wrong direction that we don't want to go. We don't want to get smaller things, we want to get more density and more use. So a taxpayer under this definition is any user of a parcel of land that brings in sufficient income to pay the property tax and make a little bit of profit. So all 3 of these are taxpayers, even though they're barely using the space. Okay. So now we get a little more specific here. So here's the property on Park Avenue South and 29th Street, which is a block from that parking lot. And the 4 lots in that property, they sold for $31 million in 2006. So 4 buildings were torn down, so the land value per square foot of that space, if you work it out, is $2,159 per square foot. But the city said it was only $502 per square foot when they did their assessment. So they're saying it's only worth a quarter of what it actually sold for. And all of those years until that property was sold, that's what they were taxing upon. So you see, the city is losing 3/4 of potential revenue right there on this one property. And it's a lot, that's probably millions of dollars just for this one lot here. So who's pocketing the difference? Well, the person who's pocketing the difference is the owner of that lot. Either they're pocketing it while they have some meager property there that's bringing in a lot of rent for them, but they're not paying much tax. Or when they go to sell it, they can sell it for more because the rent is so low, the tax is so low, we call land rent. The tax is so low that basically it doesn't, that gets factored into the price. So we say when the land rent goes down, the land price goes up. Now this is a bit controversial even among some Georgists, so I want to take a little bit of time to explain this a little bit. And I'll use an example, I'll use a theoretical example first, and then I'll use an actual real life example which I investigated. So I'll give you a question here. Suppose you have two identical co-ops, and one costs $300,000 and has a maintenance charge of $3,000 a month. The other one costs $350,000 and has a maintenance charge of $1,500 a month. Okay, so the first one is $300,000 a month and $3,000 a month maintenance. The second one is $350,000. That's $1,500 a month. So which one do you think is a more valuable property, assuming everything else is the same about them? Which one would you buy if you were in the market for that? Anybody?
If you repeat the question.
All right. The first one is a $300,000 co-op,
Okay.
and you're paying $3,000 a month common charges. The second one is $350,000, a little bit more, $50,000 more, and you're paying only $1,500 a month. So you're paying more on the price on the first one, but less on the common charge. You're paying more on the price on the second one, rather, and less on the common charge. So the common charge is half as much, it's $1,500 on the second one, and the price is a little bit higher, $350,000 instead of $300,000. So which one would you buy if you were in the market for a co-op, and assuming it met you?
The second.
Right.
Wow.
Because the second one, even though it's a little higher in price, the maintenance is so much less that over time, in fact, it's less than 3 years. Over time, you save money, and assuming you're going to stay there for 3 years, which most people do, you eventually save money. So this is why we say when the land rent goes down, the price goes up. Now, in this case, it's a common charge, but it doesn't matter what it's called. If you're a resident in that co-op and you're paying more in your rent, whether you call it common charge or property tax or whatever you call it, if you're paying more month to month, then the property is worth less in price to you. So now I'll give you an actual example, kind of maybe illustrate that a little better. There was a studio, and I actually I talked to the broker and I visited it and so on. There was a studio on 301 East 63rd Street, apartment 6A, between 1st Avenue and 2nd Avenue. The price was $185,000. Sounds pretty good. And the maintenance was $812. Not bad either. But there was an assessment to pay off a land purchase of $903 a month on top of the maintenance. So you got the maintenance of $812, and you got this assessment $903. So you're paying about $1,700 a month on top of the price of $185,000. So now you see comparable units in this neighborhood went for about $360,000. So they went for almost twice the price. But the maintenance was there on the comparable units, but they didn't have the assessment. So you see what's happening is that the assessment makes it so that they can't ask for $360,000, because if they do, then all the apartments that don't have an assessment and have a basically cheaper rent are going to go, and then this apartment can't be sold for $360,000. So they started with this apartment at like $280,000, because they thought they could get that, but it had to come down pretty rapidly, and they finally got down to $185,000. And it was still on the market, and a lot of people were coming because it was so cheap. But then when they found out about the assessment, no, maybe not. So, you have this trade-off. So basically, if you're a tenant and you're paying the assessment and you're paying the maintenance, that's a form of rent. I mean, as far as you're concerned, you're paying rent every month. You can call it maintenance, you can call it common charges, but it's basically you're paying this constant charge. So if you're going to pay a high rent every month, you're not going to pay a high price. So that's why we say there's a trade-off. So when the land rent goes down, the land price goes up, and vice versa. When the land rent goes up, the land price, or the apartment price, is going to go down. So does everybody sort of get that? I want to make sure this sort of sinks in before I go on.
Scott, did you have any, like for that specific example you mentioned, that is the 63rd Street, was the correlation between the maintenance cost, the maintenance charge, and actually the maintenance, the actual maintenance improvements that you're paying for? Because
I assume it's like any building, they maintain the building that you pay for it. So, it would go.
yeah, but what's the actual maintenance cost for the owner? I mean, sure, they charge you $500,000 for maintenance.
I have no idea what they spend, but this is what the building is charging to the studio. $802, and then the assessment was $903, $812, and then the assessment was $903. So let's all right. So let's do some more examples. Maybe this will get a little bit clearer. So here's a lot. Actually, it's 5 stories, like a mini mall, sidewalk mall, 1 story. 79 by 86 feet. The land per square foot, according to the city, is $753. So they say the building value is almost $3 million. The land value is $5 million. Frankly, I think that building is not worth $3 million, but never mind. And they say the land value is $5 million, so the total was about $8 million almost. However, in this zip code, similar buildings with 4 stories or less, the average sale price works out to per square foot cost of $2,322, which gives the land value alone $15,775,668. So you can see already just the land value alone is double what the building plus the land value is according to the city assessment. So again, the city is under assessing dramatically. As a matter of fact, this is what 3 times the so-called land value is at 753. It's actually 2322. So it's actually more than 3 times. So when they sell these buildings, that's what they get per square foot on land value. So the city is losing out again with all this tax. Question. And again, you've got a 1-story building that's not using the space very well. I mean, stores are nice, but why can't there be a building on top of that? So it's inefficient use of the space. And they're, in a sense, they're being rewarded for this inefficiency because they don't pay much tax. As we'll see later, the taller buildings tend to pay more taxes, so you're actually discouraged from building an efficient building. And here's another one. Okay. So this is one on Bleecker Street. And this one I've actually seen if I come out of that subway station. So this is an 82 by 100 foot lot. The land value is $859,000, and the building value is, they say, roughly double. Although, I dispute that. So they say the land value per square foot is $110. However, in this zip code, 3-story or less buildings, the average sale price winds up being $2,012, or 18 times what they say the land value per square foot of this property is. So they're, the city is losing out even more. They're losing 18 times what they ought to be taxing. And as you can see, this is another one where there used to be a building next door. You can see the outline, not next door, but a higher building, a 4-story building that went up to the outline there and up to the windows. And somebody tore it down. They put up this little 1-story building instead, which was a less efficient use of the space. And then it was drastically under taxed as well. So, we're going backwards. This is not the way to use land efficiently. So when people say, again, there's no place to have a business, no place to live, well, can't live on the roof. If we had a big building there, then of course there would be more places to live. All right, so let's go on and see how this works in a corporate level. All right, so take McDonald's. Now, McDonald's looks for busy intersections, of course, because they want to get a lot of customers. They'd like to get parking in New York. That doesn't usually happen, but they do look for at least a lot of traffic, people traffic. But you know, they don't. People don't realize that McDonald's is not really a burger flipping restaurant. It's one of the best real estate portfolios. And the franchisees, they flip the burgers, but McDonald's simply owns the best commercial property all over the world. And they collect an 8% royalty fee from its tenants on top of a rental income to about 10% of sales. You don't have to copy all this because there's a handout that tells you where to get this slideshow, so you can download it or see it online. So from November 2002 to July 2014, McDonald's dividend has risen 425% and their stock price 5 times. But, you know, most of what passes for profit in this company is actually indirectly collected land rent. So they're collecting this land rent, they're making all of this money. It's not really from the burgers, because there are other burger flippers, but McDonald's figured out a long time ago when Roy Kroc was running it, that if they got cheap real estate and they charged their franchisees a lot of money, they could actually make money that way. They didn't have to make money on burgers. As a matter of fact, when you download or go to the slideshow online, you'll see there's a graduate student paper up there as well that I linked to. And this graduate student, he wrote this paper about McDonald's, and he said McDonald's operates as a real estate company because it owns the land and buildings in many of its franchise locations across the world. While the royalty ranged from around 4%, presently 8.5% of the sales, he said 4, it's actually 8.5%. The rental income was equivalent to about 10% of the sales on top of the royalties paid by the franchisees. So he said this makes McDonald's more of a property owner than a conventional fast food chain. So that's how they work. Now let's look at an actual example. So is that sort of clear so far? All right, so here's a McDonald's near a subway stop. This is on Delancey Street, and you notice it's only a 3-story building. This is not an accident. You know, they're looking for cheap real estate, and the lower buildings tend to be cheaper for them to pay the property tax. So they are typically in these low buildings. So the lot size is 65 by 100 feet. The building value is $3,427,000. Seems a little more realistic. And the land value is $2 million, and the land value per square foot then works out to $307 per square foot. But in this zip code, parcels that are 3 stories or less, when they go to sell for a per square foot land value of $1,571. So again, you know, this is 1/5 of what it ought to be. And the property tax that McDonald's is paying then is 1/5 of what they ought to pay. So they're making a big killing and they're making a lot of money, as reflected in their stock price and so forth, but you know, the city is losing out. And as we'll see later, they have to make it up somewhere else. So that's another example. Here's another McDonald's. This is on Broadway. And this one goes, land value is $2,300,000, the building value is a little over $1 million, and the land value per square foot is $914. But next door, that's not this big building on here, but the one on that side here, the older building. That is a 7-story building, and on a lot size that's probably pretty close, 76 by 100, and their land value per square foot is actually less for some reason. Don't ask me why. McDonald's makes the land value goes up more than that big building. But the thing is, that's not right either, because that big building, that 7-story building, sold in 2005 for $14.5 million. Then went co-op in 2007, and the units would sell for $1 million a piece. So, you know, here we've got the building that's next to McDonald's. I guess that makes it more valuable. But in any case, the city was not collecting the land rent for that either. They were actually collecting less than they do on the McDonald's, which wasn't enough either. So the average sale price per square foot of buildings 4 stories or less and in a neighborhood with an average of 6 stories, is $1,781. So it's a lot more than 568. It's even more than 914. So the city is losing money on both of those properties. All right, now here we go out to Brooklyn, because I don't want to just pick on McDonald's all night. We're going to, yeah.
Just before leaving McDonald's,
Thank you.
is any record of how frequently they sell the properties or they keep it?
Well, as long as, McDonald's can make money and they don't have to pay a lot of property tax, and the franchisee doesn't a lot of business, they'll keep it. I mean, why wouldn't they? They can keep this going for a long time, and they're making money just by sitting there and having the city appreciate, and that property values go up in the city, and McDonald's values go along with that. Now here's a Dunkin' Donuts, and now it's in Brooklyn, but even so, land value per square foot at $15, that seems pretty darn low. I realize it's 4th Avenue in Brooklyn, but still, Brooklyn's up and coming anyway. So here's a lot that's 100 by 150 feet. It actually has some parking space. They say the land value is only $225,000 according to the city. The building value of $1,323,000. That's probably too high. But in this SIP, the average sale price per square foot of a vacant lot, no building, goes for $337. So it's 22 times what this lot was assessed for. So if that's typical, and it probably is, then the city is losing a lot of money because they're not getting enough taxes. And there's no incentive for anybody to build a larger, more efficient building in that location, which has Dunkin' Donuts on the first floor. So don't worry, you won't lose your donuts. It just has to be a different way. Okay, so finally, there's one in the Bronx. So there's actually 2 properties here, 515 and 517. East 138th Street, land value there is supposedly $28. But of the there's 179 vacant lots in the zip code, and the average price per square foot of those vacant lots is $191. So again, the city is losing out. And the average sale value is $1,400,000. So, you contrast that, you look at one of these vacant lots in the lower corner there, and you see that property tax for the entire lot per year is $300. So, I mean, that's just crazy. If they're selling these kind of lots for, $1.5 million, and they're charging $300 a year, I mean, you could sit on that lot, if you own it, just sit on it for 10 years and it'll be worth $5 million. So why would you ever sell it? Why would you ever build anything there? There's no incentive at all. So this is why, if you multiply these by the thousands, this is why the city is losing so much money on potential rent. Now let's look at a little bit of a different thing here, and don't get too intimidated by this chart. It's not that bad. This is a property, actually 9 properties, 9 lots on 2nd Avenue between 36th and 37th Street. I apologize for the nighttime picture on the top, but I wanted to get this property because it was important. So this building in the back, which the arrow is pointing to, is on a 34% smaller lot than the combined land area of the 8 lots that make up this parking lot in front of it. Okay, so you see the fence is actually around the parking on the bottom. You can see during the daytime. This is from 36th Street, so you can see where the cars are parked. So this is the front of the billboard on the top, and then the back of the billboard. They've got billboards on both sides. So the first picture is from 2nd Avenue, second is from 36th. All right, so this is a 34% smaller lot, but it's a 286 unit building. All right, big building, nice, efficient use of space. So what happens? The 8 lots, which again are 34% larger space, pay $178,000 a year in taxes. Well, that sounds okay, except that when you look at the building behind it, it turns out to be $1,827,000. Right? Yeah. $514. So it's roughly what? It's like they're paying 10% on the lots and, of the building behind it. So here again, you've got actually a larger space with all of these lots that make up the parking lot, and they're paying 10% of the building that's on a smaller space that's sitting behind the parking lot. So I mean, this is a drastic example of mistaxing, misassessment. Now, there's no incentive really. The people who own this parking lot, appropriately named S&M Enterprises, they don't have to charge much to park cars because they don't need much money in order to pay the tax. It's, if they have cars parked there all year, if they have 50 cars, then that's enough to pay the tax plus the one attendant. So they can keep doing this forever, and they got the billboard income too. So there's no real incentive to build anything there. Okay. So
If the income could be generated, I'm sure they would.
well, I
But
don't
you
know
will not
because
be everywhere and get the same kind of income that you get everywhere. I mean, that's
well, see, this is the problem. The building behind is paying so much more in property tax, and so that the people who own the parking lot will say, "Well, wait a minute. If I build something there, I too am going to have to pay a lot more property tax." In other words, the property tax is going to go up